This is what I'm going to call a virtual field trip to a production that I worked on called Insecticide, the game. I may have mentioned that to some of you that I worked on this 3D Maya game called Insecticide, which was done for the Nintendo DS and for the PC. I was the animation director and I was in on development. And if you look here, I'm going to show you the full motion video and cinematic that was done. This is on YouTube. You can go and you can look up some of this animation, but this is the setup. I'll turn up the volume just a little bit.
It gave me a rotten feeling in my thorax. But since the incident at the diner, Chris had been running on overdrive. Maybe I would.
So I'll turn the volume down so we can just look at some of the animation here. And this was basically a adventure, detective adventure, which had a lot of shooting, but it also had some crime solving and it involved insects. So here is the some of the animation that was done for that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the files, and I'm going to show you some of the behind the kind of under the hood, behind the scenes stuff here. I'm going to close this here. And first thing I'm going to show you is the project folder for this. And here's the project folder, and it is divided up into the art, the design, full motion video, and whatnot. I was mostly working under the art folder, which had the animation, it had the characters, effects, it had the levels. And I'm going to show you some of the artwork and some of the characters in here. I'm not going to go too deep into it, just kind of give you sort of a behind the scenes look, sort of. So what I'm going to show you first of all is, let's go into a Maya file, and I'm going to show you a character. So this is the lead character here, and this is a walk cycle of her, and this is an in-game. This is one of the in-game animations that I did. It's just a walk cycle. And if you, let's open up, I can kind of show you. Sometimes this doesn't work very well, but let's go into animation editors, the track editor, and here are all the animations. Yeah, see, it's kind of hard to scroll through some of these because there's so many of them. But all of these little clips here, all of her different actions. So let's just see if I can find one here. See, it's not cooperating with me right now. But since this, I'd like to show you some of the texturing, and so this is just her model here, and this is her wireframe, as you can see, and you can also see her rig underneath here as well. Let's just kind of show, let's get rid of the polygons, and you can see her rig showing up here like so. Very simple rig, and let's put the polygons back on. Let's go back into shaded mode, and this is kind of what it looks like. So you can move it around, you can, I'm moving her eyes around, I can grab her feet, and she's got 4 feet because she's a spider girl. So anyway, so that's sort of this. Now, one thing I do want to show you is her texture and how her texture map works. I'm going to open up Photoshop, and this here is her UV texture. And as you can see, I don't have the actual UV grid on it, but the way it was done is that it's half of her. It covers half of her geometry, and it's mirrored. So this is just half of her geometry, and if you were to look, this is her head here, there's her mouth, of course this is her eye, and it's not laid out like you would think. It's not laid out like she's in the T pose or something like that. It's laid out efficiently, so it makes the best use of the UV grid area. And we can kind of look at this, and I was trying to see if I can get a little bit closer. Oh, I can't. My Photoshop is not the way that I wanted it, but you can kind of get the idea here. So another thing I kind of want to show you, let's go to something else, and here's a level. So here's an environment, and this is pretty big. Okay, this is a pretty huge environment. Let's look at it in wireframe so you can kind of see what it looks like, all the geometry. Whoops, let's get a little closer. I'll show you what that is in a second. This is just the geometry without the texture on it. And it's actually pretty low detail. There's not really a heck of a lot of detail. Let's just look at this item here. But if we were to go and put on some texturing, you can kind of see that it makes it a little bit more convincing. And this is fairly huge. Let's look at this here for a second. Let's just kind of see what this looks like. So look at that. This is a solid piece of geometry, but with the texture there's a transparency map put over it, and it makes a very effective kind of like a chain link fence kind of thing that you can kind of go through like that. Very nicely done. And let's take a look at, let's see if I have any of those texture files open. I believe I do. Yeah, here we go. So here are all the textures. You can see that there's a lot of them, and they're not UV mapped, they're just placed on there. I guess there is some UV mapping involved in this, but a lot of this is just selecting surfaces and mapping these surfaces. Let's just open up something like this. It's going to open it up like that, and they would find the surface where that would be appropriate, and they would just map that on. I'll say here it is. I think this is it down here. Might be down here. Let's get a little closer. Well, yeah, it's similar, but it's not exactly a thing, and it'd probably take me a while to find that actual surface on there. But you can see that it's actually there. That there's a lot of surfaces. There's actually only a few surfaces, and a lot of them are repeated. So while there is many surfaces, they use the surfaces over and over again. So now look at this. We have a sky surface here, and it is basically a dome. I'm just going to zoom out here so you can see what it is. And I have double siding on here. I'm going to select this dome, go to my, let's go to the attributes, and let's put on double-sided. Let's check double-sided, and you can see now this is what it looks like from the outside, but I've unchecked double-sided so I can see through, and it's only the side is facing inward, and that's pretty much all we need. There's also another level here, like a transparency with the clouds. There's actually two domes going on here. So there's an outer dome which shows the sky, and then there's a transparency dome which shows some clouds and things like that. So again, let me just kind of go in here and show you sort of what this is. So here's the sky texture that was domed, that was mapped onto the dome, and it's a repeated image. And then we have all of these texture images that are mapped on individually. You know, so here's like a diner window that was probably used, I don't know, a dozen times or so. So you know, so you can make these one images. Here are some these are some bump maps or some displacement maps to give a little bit of thickness or definition to some of those surfaces there, which you can't really see unless we render it, but it takes a while to render these, so I'm not going to do that right now. Let's see what else we have here. Here are some other texture maps. Here's a texture map for one of the other characters, the Robo-Bug, and you can see it doesn't really make much sense, but if we were to go and open up one of the Robo-Bug, let's just open one up just to see if we can go and navigate through here. Let's navigate back. And Robobug, let's find, here we go. Let's see if we can find him and see what he looks like in comparison to that texture map I just showed you. Takes a minute for it to open up. I've also got two Mayas running right now, so it doesn't really... Oh, so here's something that's interesting. So you're seeing that this big blocky thing going on here. What that is collision geometry, and this would be made invisible, but this goes on. I'm just going to make that invisible like that. Let's show none and show polygons, and so nerve curves like that. So what this is that this is given a property where if he hits another piece of geometry, he will stop. So what the hit volumes or the collision geometry does is keep them from going through and walking through walls or walking through other characters, but that's not seen when it's in the game. So again, this is the character that I just showed you, him all textured, and let's see if we can find that. And there it is right there, and there's his geometry there, and we can kind of compare it to... I have it open up twice. Let's just open it up once. You can kind of go and see that, how that works back and forth. So that's just a very brief and sort of a superficial look into a production. There's a lot more that goes on with a production like this, and if you have any specific questions, we can go in and look at some specific things. If anybody is interested in the future, I hope this was informative and that you had fun.